Green Bay Packers have their throwback uniforms for the coming season. Can't use different helmets until next year. This year, the base yellow helmet with the awesome green and gold throwback from the 50s. The Packers from time to time, I think, have swung and missed with alternate uniforms when they have the plum-colored helmet, when they've got the blue jersey with the circle and the number. And no, these are good. I like these because they don't look like throwbacks. They look like a modern configuration of something that they think will look good, and it does.
Yeah, and no logo on the helmet. I like that, Mike. These are traditional throwback uniforms, and the Packers have swung and missed, as you've said, but these are good. These I think the players are really going to like these uniforms.
Packers take on the New York Jets on Saturday. Don't expect to see any Aaron Rodgers. We surely will see plenty of Zach Wilson as he tries to get ready for his first regular season. Let's do something that we used to do last year, PFTPM, during the season, a Friday feature. Then can't wait to see the things that are happening in the coming weekend. Preseason week 2, can't wait to see. Charean, you go first. What do you got?
Well, Mike, when we came out of the first real week of the preseason, not counting the Hall of Fame game, what were we talking about rookie quarterbacks? We were talking about Justin Fields, and we were talking about Mac Jones, we were talking about Trey Lance, we were talking about all those guys. One guy we didn't talk a lot about, Trevor Lawrence, the #1 overall pick. I want to see more from Trevor Lawrence this week. We're going to definitely see more plays from him. He only got 15 snaps last week. He wasn't bad. He was 6-9 for 71 yards and took a couple of sacks. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but I want to see more. I want to see some play that we're talking about. All right, this guy has it. I see it. Kind of like what we were talking about with Mac Jones after last night. And I didn't see that last week from Trevor Lawrence, and I didn't come out talking about Trevor Lawrence the way we did some of these other guys. So a little bit more from Trevor Lawrence this week, and I'll be happy with the #1 overall pick. And the questions maybe right now we're facing, could they have possibly traded down, as we know that the Dolphins could have done last year and ended up with Justin Herbert? Are there going to be those questions this year? Could the Jaguars have traded down and gotten one of those other quarterbacks and ended up with more and a quarterback giving up Trevor Lawrence? Those questions you don't want to ask if you're the Jaguars.
There was never a hint, never a suggestion, never even an opportunity. There was never even,
right,
as far as I could see, a team interested in springing up to get Trevor Lawrence. It was just kind of a given from the moment the season ended. They hire Urban Meyer. Trevor's the guy. And going into his rookie season, he's the guy. And that's what's amazing to me. They're still trying to sell the idea, Charean, that there's a quarterback competition between Trevor Lawrence and Gardner Minshew. Just yesterday, Darrell Bevell said it's status quo. How is it status quo? Now, look, Lawrence wasn't spectacular last week, but he clearly performed better in my assessment than Gardner Minshew in the preseason opener. And I think they're trying to get somebody, maybe the Cowboys, to trade for Gardner Minshew. And there are plenty of teams out there that should be interested in Gardner Minshew. 37 career touchdown passes, 11 interceptions in 2 seasons. He has been good. But at some point, you've got to stop with this phony quarterback competition and give the reins to Trevor Lawrence and get him ready. So that is still just kind of weird to me. We'll see when it ends. Maybe it'll end after this game coming up on Monday night against the Saints. Now, in that same game, what I can't wait to see is an actual legitimate quarterback competition involving, of all the quarterback competitions out there this year, the 2 best candidates. You've got guys there that, you know, if you would take Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston and drop them in Denver, I think be the no-question starter. I mean, these guys, this isn't the if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. The Saints legitimately have 2 good quarterbacks to choose from, and we'll see more on Monday night that will give us an inkling, even though Sean Payton's not going to tell us until he has to, which of the 2 guys is going to be the starter come week 1 against the Green Bay Packers. Charean, do you have a lean? Do you have a gut feeling as to who's going to win that competition between Hill and Winston?
Well, going into the offseason program and the preseason, I thought it was going to be Jameis Winston. I tend to lean more toward Taysom Hill now. Jameis just scares me with the turnovers, the way he turns the ball over. I think he's obviously probably the better passer between the two. I'm not going to be surprised, Mike, though, if they don't play both of these quarterbacks this year. I could see that happening where they play them both and have a package for Jameis and have a package for Taysom, and we see both quarterbacks perhaps in the same game, but that's not going to surprise me at all if both guys don't play this year.
I said earlier this week.
That's a double negative.
They know who we mean. I said earlier this week that it actually hurts Hill that he's so versatile and he almost has to win the job in a landslide, because you can make Jameis Winston the starter and put Taysom Hill on the field too and have both of them out there. Whereas the idea of having Hill as the quarterback and Jameis Winston in this jack-of-all-trades role, that's not going to work. So in my mind, that's a negative for Taysom. The fact that he can do all those other things is going to hurt him in the quarterback competition. What else can't you wait to see this weekend?
Well, Mike, I'm interested to see how coaches are going to use this second preseason game, because we only have 3, and we know they're using it in different ways. The Buccaneers, for instance, aren't playing most of their starters this week. Tom Brady's not going to play, but they are going to play in that final preseason game where the Cowboys are taking the different approach. They're going to play their starters other than Dak Prescott this week and not play most of their starters in that final preseason game. But one thing I'm interested in, if the starters are going to play in this game, I want to see Kyler Murray in his preseason debut going against Patrick Mahomes, who got a few snaps last week, and I want to see those two guys go at it. It's going to give me a taste, and I'm going to want to see them stay in there, and of course they're not going to. I only wish this was a regular season game. Then I would be ultra hyped for seeing these two guys go against each other. But I hope we see enough. I hope we at least see a quarter of those two guys in this game, because I think it'll be really, really fun.
Yeah, it's a shame they're in different conferences. I'd like to see their paths cross more frequently, and we will see Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield together this year because of that extra game. That 17th game brings the Browns and the Cardinals together for what was an unexpected game. Expected that Trey Lance will be in the mix to be the starter in San Francisco. I can't wait to see how he does in his second game. What progression, what growth? Will we see another big throw? Will he do a better job of picking up the blitz against the LA Chargers? And will it become a situation where, as we get closer and closer to week 1, the 49ers are less and less sure about this plan to go forward with Jimmy Garoppolo? I still think Charean, and what a throw this was, all the way across the field from his own 13 to the opposing 43, the catch and run for the 80-yard touchdown, only his second NFL throw. What a way to start your career. But we're getting closer and closer to the point where maybe if a trade opportunity doesn't emerge out of nowhere, and it typically would result because of an injury to a starting quarterback elsewhere, the 49ers approach Jimmy Garoppolo and say, we can't justify paying you $25 million. We'll pay you 10. We'll pay you 15. We'll give you a reduced base salary and give you a chance to make all that money back if you end up starting 17 games or whatever the case may be. But we just can't do it. And it's so late in the process, it's not like someone else is going to offer him more than what the 49ers offer. And if he says no, will he be out on his ear? Look, and I understand it seems cold and it's heartless, but this is the way it works. This is the way they make the sausage. You put a dollar value on a player, and $25 million is too high on Jimmy Garoppolo if Trey Lance is checking all the boxes and looking like he's accelerating his development. So my point is, I want to see how much we see acceleration from Lance, because it does, if he continues, put the 49ers in a spot where maybe they can put the squeeze on Garoppolo.
When we talk about these first-round quarterbacks, the one thing you kind of separate the Patriots and the 49ers is from those other teams is they look like playoff teams, right? They should be playoff teams. For that, you need a veteran quarterback. If you're really talking about competing, I think the 49ers think they can get to the Super Bowl. You're not going to get to the Super Bowl, history says, with Trey Lance as your quarterback. It's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo as your quarterback. I could definitely see them going to him and telling him, we need you to take a pay cut, no question about that. I'm going to be very surprised unless somebody offers them just outrageous compensation. I'm going to be very surprised if Jimmy Garoppolo is not the starting quarterback of this team in week 1. And if they continue to win, he will continue to be the quarterback because they think they have a really good team. Beset by injuries last season, they have all those guys back healthy for this season. This is a team that can contend not only for that division title in a very tough division, but if they're able to win that division, they certainly have a chance to go on and compete for a Super Bowl. So I think Jimmy's going to be their quarterback. You start looking at bye weeks. They have an early bye, week 6. If they're struggling at all come week 6, Trey Lance is going to be the guy.
I just can't help but think that they are truly fed up with Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's easy to point to the injuries, but I think it goes deeper than that. At one point earlier in camp, Kyle Shanahan made the observation that Jimmy's having a really strong camp, and it wasn't that way last year. I just think they had reached their wits' end with Jimmy Garoppolo. You don't make that move from 12 to 3, where you ultimately give up 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick for a successor to Jimmy Garoppolo if you're perfectly content to let him go forward as the guy. Because if it does work out like it did in 2019, and I know that it's easy to say it's a good problem to have, it's not a good problem to have when you've invested that much in the future and you're still stuck in the past. And I really do feel like they are hoping for an exit ramp from Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're hoping that it will reveal itself. And if it doesn't, then that's when you activate the, hey, Jimmy, we can't justify paying you $25 million plan. So I just, going all in with Jimmy Garoppolo makes no sense to me. I can't reconcile it with everything they gave up to get Trey Lance, Charean.
Yeah, well, you look at, Jordan Love, sort of the same situation in Green Bay, and I realize that Aaron Rodgers is a much more accomplished quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo was, but this is a guy who started a Super Bowl game, and if not for that fourth quarter, 49ers would have won that game and should have won that game, and you can't erase that because he was really, really bad in the fourth quarter of that game, and maybe that's when they realized they needed an upgrade at that position, and then he comes out and gets hurt again, and he just can't stay healthy. But they obviously have drafted Trey Lance not to sit on the bench for all that long. I mean, he's going to be the starting quarterback at some point. The question is when, not if. And I tend to think it's going to be later than sooner just because I think this is a really good team. Otherwise, I think Trey Lance would start in week 1. He has looked good enough so far in the preseason, small sample size, that you could say this guy gets the ball down the field. He does all the things we want in our offense.
But if you let this Garoppolo thing play out and the presence of Lance in some way serves as what Sims would call the red-hot poker on the rear end of Jimmy Garoppolo, and he reaches a level of ability we haven't seen, an ability to stay healthy that we haven't seen, and he indefinitely postpones the launch of the Trey Lance era, that's where it just gets weird. And I don't want to compare it to Jordan Love behind Aaron Rodgers or Jimmy Garoppolo behind Tom Brady, but we know that using a second-round pick on Garoppolo in 2014 lit a fire under Brady's rear end. They hadn't won a Super Bowl in 10 years. They won 3, and I think a part of that was that drafting Garoppolo was a catalyst for Brady to take it to a higher level. I think that, and they can talk all around it all they want, but if we get to a point a few years from now where Jimmy Garoppolo is transformed into some sort of superhero quarterback, and it's all because they gave up all that stuff to get Trey Lance, and Lance can't get on the field, I think that's a far from ideal solution. And I only say that because that's the path they're going to put themselves on if the attitude is we're going with Jimmy this year. So because they have such a great team, that's what concerns me about it. You could have an artificially strong view of Jimmy Garoppolo because he just happens to be the captain of a ship that is sailing through blue waters.
I'll give you a different comparison. Can you compare it to Patrick Mahomes behind Alex Smith? We all knew Patrick Mahomes was going to take over for Alex Smith. And you've made the point you think they would have won a Super Bowl with Patrick Mahomes if they had gotten him in the game before Week 17 and if he had played in the postseason. But can you compare it to that situation with the Chiefs?
Well, if Alex Smith and the Chiefs had gone to the Super Bowl in 2017 and potentially won it, what do you do in 2018? That's what the 49ers are flirting with here. And again, it's a good problem to have because you get another trophy. You get to number 6. You match the Patriots. But you still have to go and play football seasons in the future. And there's an outcome to this Jimmy Garoppolo experiment moving forward that ties the 49ers' hands into 2022. It didn't happen to the Chiefs, and we didn't expect it to happen to the Chiefs. We didn't look at the Chiefs in 2017 as a Super Bowl team. We didn't. We look at the 49ers as a potential Super Bowl team if they can stay healthy. And so that's where I feel like for everything they gave up to get Lance, for everything they have on that team, for the expectations that I think we reasonably possess for that franchise, it just feels like there's some risk there, a weird kind of risk, an unusual kind of risk that they're going to trip into such a good season that Trey Lance will have gone 2 years without playing much football because he only played one game last year for North Dakota State. All right, what else are you looking forward to seeing this weekend?
Well, Mike, I want to see if the Ravens can tie the NFL record for consecutive preseason victories. I know it's not a huge thing, but it still says something to how good they have been, not only in the preseason, but the regular season. They know how to win. This is just a team that knows how to win, right? They've won 18 in a row. Their last loss was in August of 2015. The last team to do that, to win 19 in a row, if they can do that this week, the 1959-62 Packers. This is just a team that knows how to win consistently year after year after year. They do it in the preseason. They do it in the regular season. Yes, they haven't won a Super Bowl in a while, but they're always there. They always contend, and I think you're going to see that again with the Ravens this year in the regular season. And, oh, by the way, they're 3.5-point favorites in Vegas to win this week. And if you're betting on the preseason, you probably have a gambling problem.
Well, Sims and I talked about this yesterday, Charean, and my theory is a very simple one. John Harbaugh is so ridiculously competitive, he obsesses over winning preseason games. Even when it's meaningless, it's meaningful to him. A lot of those games were close. So, and look, it's also good practice. You get yourself in a close game, you learn how to win close games. And there is a reason why the Ravens have been one of the elite franchises for years now, and a reason why Harbaugh has been the coach for as long as he has, all the way back to 2008. This is a great organization top to bottom. They have a great culture, and they will try to win the games that don't matter, including the games that do matter. There's a game that won't matter in Minnesota on Saturday night with the Colts coming to town, but we expect to see Kirk Cousins. I can't wait to see just the reaction, because he's been, of all the quarterbacks, the most vocal about the vaccination issue, front and center, talked about things he's going to do to avoid getting COVID other than, getting vaccinated. And it was a flashpoint. It's been an issue of concern among Vikings fans, and he's going to walk out onto the field. How's it going to be received? Is it going to be smattering of cheers and boos? Is he going to be booed? I really am curious to see how the folks in Minnesota, he was at the game last week, but he wasn't in uniform. He's on the sideline. It's not the same. When he goes out there onto the field, how will he be received? And what's the dynamic going to be between him and the coaching staff? I'm going to be looking for anything from Mike Zimmer. And Mike, it's not like you have to look for facial expressions or anything from Mike Zimmer. How's Mike Zimmer going to assess Kirk Cousins' performance in that game? Let's hear what he says, because he was very candid about the team's performance last week. But, this became an awkward thing a couple of weeks ago, and it makes sense to just kind of take the temperature of where all the relationships are as we get closer to the start of the season, because surely Zimmer and others are still dismayed that Cousins has put himself in a position where any given day he's going to get knocked out for either 5 days minimum if he's a close contact with someone who's positive for COVID, or 10 days minimum if he tests positive.
Well, and you just look at the quarterback behind him that they drafted, Kellen Mond, test positive for COVID, right? Unvaccinated as well. And he only practiced, 2 times up to that preseason game last week. If this was a regular season and Kirk Cousins test positive, we saw it last year. We saw it with Cam Newton. We saw it with other quarterbacks when they didn't have the vaccine. So, he's taking a huge risk here that he could be knocked out of a regular season game or 2 or 3 or however long it might be and not be able to play for the Vikings. And it set back Kellen Mond because he didn't get all that practice time. We know once the regular season starts, those backup quarterbacks just don't get those reps. He needed those reps. He needed more preseason time, and he didn't get that because he was out with COVID.
And that's the thing to remember, right, wrong, or otherwise. If you're not vaccinated, you get tested for COVID every single day. They've got the Mason machine. It's a PCR test, highly reliable. You have to get a negative before they even let you in the building every day if you're unvaccinated. If you're vaccinated, the rule still is, and at one point I think Shefty suggested they were going to go to once per week. That never happened. They're still at once every 14 days for a COVID test if you're vaccinated. Justin Pugh, who tested positive despite being vaccinated, echoed a concern that the NFLPA articulated recently that maybe there should be daily testing for vaccinated players. And who knows? It can all change at any given time. But until it does, if you're a starting quarterback and you're vaccinated, there's no chance you're going to test positive the day of the game or the day before the game or have some late 11th hour scratch because of a positive test, because you're not going to be tested. If you are a starting quarterback and you're not vaccinated, it's every day. Every day that chance is there, that risk is there. And if you got vaccinated players who aren't getting tested more than once every 2 weeks, who are carrying the virus, you may catch it from them. And you test positive on Sunday and you're down for a minimum of 10 days. That's why it's a thing. That's why it's an issue. And until it changes to daily testing for vaccinated players, there's a huge advantage to being vaccinated for that reason. You're not going to have that sudden and abrupt, oh, we don't have a starting quarterback today. Oh, well, let's go see if we can win the game with a guy who's a backup for a reason. All right, give me something else that you can't wait to see this weekend.
Well, I want to see the Colts quarterbacks because the Colts never expected to be in this situation, right? And now they have Carson Wentz there on the sideline, and they may have to start one of these young quarterbacks for at least a season opener, maybe longer than that, Mike. And I just thought Jacob Eason looked terrific, 15 to 21, 183 yards last week. He has separated himself from Sam Ehlinger. No surprise there. I mean, this is his second year in the offense where Sam Ehlinger just got there. But the Colts just weren't supposed to be in this situation. And wouldn't it be something, Mike, if Carson Wentz got Wally pipped by Jacob Eason? And don't rule that out. We've seen it before. We saw it with Justin Herbert last year with Tyrod Taylor. We've seen it before. And wouldn't that be something if Jacob Eason comes in and just lights this thing up? And what are you going to do if he's playing so well at that? Say he goes 2-3-4-0 before Carson Wentz gets back. Are you going to pull him out of the lineup if he's playing that great? We saw with Dak Prescott when Tony Romo came back. Now, Tony Romo came back late in the season, but you couldn't pull Dak Prescott out of the lineup at that point. So the Colts may be faced with a tough decision if this guy gets off to a great start during the season about what are they going to do with Carson Wentz.
Here's what confuses me, though, about the Colts quarterback situation with Carson Wentz recovering from foot surgery. The moment it happened, the word was unequivocally, unconditionally, Jacob Eason's the guy. We believe in Jacob Eason. We think he can get it done. And then not long after that, oh, wait, Sam Ehlinger is getting first-team reps. Sam Ehlinger has forced his way into the conversation. Well, that's also an indictment of Eason, because if Eason is doing what you think Eason is going to do and what you expect him to do, there's not going to be an opening for the sixth-round rookie from Texas to force his way into the conversation. And from the Colts' perspective now, where my concern is, if I'm a Colts fan, I'm looking at this saying, at some point, we got to pick a horse. If Carson Wentz isn't going to be back and ready to go week one, we got to say it's Eason or Ehlinger, and we got to get that guy ready. We can't split the first-team reps. Get the guy ready for week one against the Seahawks. We've talked all week long about the schedule for the Colts. Holy crap, the first 5 or 6 games, if you don't have Carson Wentz, you got a problem. And maybe that's really the bottom line. If you don't have Carson Wentz, you got a big problem. Week 1 through 5, Seahawks, Rams, at Titans, at Dolphins, at Ravens. Good luck with that. Even with Carson Wentz, good luck with that. But at some point, Charean, the urgency sets in to get someone ready to go week one, whether it's Wentz, Eason, or Ehlinger. And I hope that they emerge from the game on Saturday night knowing which of those two guys is going to be the focal point until they know that Wentz can come back.
Yeah, and Ellinger was sick earlier this week, so he had a setback, didn't look good at practice, and I think they started to see that separation. But you're right, they've got to pick the horse. He's got to get the reps. Whatever guy you're starting has got to get a ton of reps in this game, has got to get a ton of reps in the next game, because these are guys who haven't played in the regular season. They need as many game reps as they can get. You've got 2 weeks to do that. Pick your guy, let him play, and let's go. And hey, if he can win those, if it's Jacob Eason and he can win those games to start the season, they're going to have a nice problem to have when Carson Wentz comes back.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.